Good morning. My name's Wendy. I'm the National Programme Manager at TechFest, and today we have Edward from the Net Zero Technology Centre. Edward is an incredible individual. He is the Acceleration Manager, from the award-winning TechX Clean Energy Startup Programme at NZTC, and he has a background in building, delivering and leading entrepreneurship programmes, including helping to launch Robert Gordon University's first startup accelerator, which I attended recently, and an incredible event for young entrepreneurs. Edward has also coached hundreds of aspiring entrepreneurs, and he himself has won the UK Rising Star in Enterprise Education Award and attended the entrepreneurship programme at MIT, which, Edward, I'll need to pick your brains on that later. That sounds like an incredible story. And Edward's also previously founded his own charity. He's taught as a lecturer. And as if that doesn't keep him busy enough, he's also served on the board of a university. So, Edward, if I can hand over to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for watching this talk. Hopefully you're sitting there with a bit of an idea brewing in your head. But if not, if you've never thought of entrepreneurship, my goal over the next 30 minutes is to give you a little of a spark of inspiration maybe, but also give you some practical tips around how you can go from classroom to boardroom and try and take your entrepreneurial aspirations to the next level. And I'm going to be a bit selfish, and I'm going to start with me, because I want to take you back to when I was in the classroom, when I was in a similar position to yourselves, and I was living out in Dubai. My dad worked in oil and gas, and we got to move out to Dubai. And I remember every single day going to school, and I was going to my science classroom, where I would be going to my lecture, my teacher, Mr. Alvaro. We were given this community service project, and our goal was to try and come up with some sort of project to look at researching a sustainable development goal. And I remember I went home and I had to try and research this project to think, right, we've got to figure something out about sustainable development goals. Which one am I going to pick? What am I going to do for my project? And I was thinking through the night, will I focus on food? Will I focus on equality, gender, different areas of that? I remember the next day I got up in the morning, I brushed my teeth, brushing them with the water in the tap. I showered, I filled my water bottle with the big water cooler. And as I was driving to school, on one side of the window was a complete desert in Dubai. And the other side of this road was a place called Emirates Hills, Dubai's version of Beverly Hills. And it was luscious golf courses, mansions, sprinklers of water spraying absolutely everywhere, liters and liters of water covering this desert with luscious green grass. And that's when I had this moment of realization that I was sitting here in Dubai, a desert where all of this water was being wasted and used. And yet from my research, I'd found out that so many people around the world just didn't have access to clean water. And I'd seen this sort of challenge every single day living in this desert climate. So I knew right then that I needed to focus this project on clean water. And that was my first lesson around entrepreneurship, very briefly, that you might find the issue around you. Look at the world around you, observe some of the challenges, because there's two different routes to how you might find a business idea. The first might be a functional thing, a problem that you're needing solved, but the other might be a personal passion, something you see. And your goal is to try and think about the things around you to try and come up with those ideas based on what you find. So let me embarrass myself, because here is little old me in my science presentation. This was me about the same time, around the same day that I saw those school trips and I'd seen that water and decided that I wanted to work on my science project around clean water. And I tend to have this bad habit of going a little bit too far. So I did my school project, I did my research, and I realized that handing in a report really wasn't going to make much difference. And I wanted to do something different. So I had this wave of inspiration that maybe we could do a bake sale, or we could put on an assembly, or we could kind of do something. But my challenge was bake sales and assemblies, they were not enough. They're not going to raise enough money. We needed something that was higher revenue generating, and there was too many competitions. There was a dress down day or a bake sale every other week at my school. So I'd recently watched the film Grease, which I imagine lots of you are too young to have ever seen the film Grease, but your teachers will probably know about it. And it's at the end of the film Grease. It's a high school film, and there's a big carnival where they celebrate the end of the school year, and there's rides and attractions and carnival games. And I had a feeling then that that was the scale of what I wanted to try and do. think about how much money we could make, how much we could fundraise from that school project. And I put together a really delightful, the one on the left, full of colors. This was, this was in the time when computers weren't that cool, but I put together this project plan where I was like, right, I'm going to put on a World Water Day at my school, and I'm going to go in. And I remember knocking on the head teacher's office with this bold idea where I said, right, I want to do this full project. I want to set up a club. I want to launch this venture. I want to raise all this money. I want to take over the school field and put on rides and attractions. And for some reason, my head teacher, who should have probably said no, said yes, go for it. Let's see what you can do, and was able to support that. And I went on trying to come up with this bold plan. And I remember having to walk into skyscrapers, corporate offices, to try and talk to these big industry leaders to try and raise money to try and put on these big events. And that first event, it happened. We put it on. This was silly little me with my floppy hair, and we took over the field. We had lots of different rides and attractions, and we took what was a simple plan and turned it into an actual event. And this is the thing about entrepreneurship, is that when you're in school, the age that you are now, being an entrepreneur is about taking risks. It's about being ambitious. It's about trying things and learning that some things work and some things won't. And as you get older, sadly, you lose that ability to take risks and to kind of take a chance and see where you go. Because this guy in this floppy haired picture, pretending to be Justin Bieber, had no worries. He would walk right into the principal's office with a bold idea to give it a try and just see what happens. And if you want to do something different around entrepreneurship, if you want to go beyond just having a job and having your own business, you need to think about that. But equally, you need to be ambitious. So not just going with something like a bake sale that everyone does. You need to think about your revenue models, because entrepreneurship, and even if it's for a charity, you do need to think about money. So think about what stands out. Nobody had ever done an event like this in my school before, and I thought it would be bigger and bolder than anyone else's project, so surely it's going to attract more people. And I remember walking into that field that exact day when I was a teenager in school and feeling so much pride of this event that I'd been able to put together. We'd got sponsors, we got the bouncy castles. I remember seeing all the kids running about having a great time, and we raised thousands for charity just in that one day alone. So as we went into the next years, I was overconfident. I thought, I'm Mark Zuckerberg. I'm an amazing entrepreneur. I've got this nailed. I know exactly what I need to do. Loads of people came last year. I was overconfident. I know what I'm doing now. And I remember the next year, we put on the same event, we put on the same attractions, but when I was thinking about it, I was just sending one email out to staff. I was just assuming that because people had heard about the event last year, that was all it took. So I didn't put any effort into the marketing or promotion. I remember, I think I was 14 or 15. I walked out into the same field the next year. This does look busy, but to me, all these people are basically volunteers. And this was at the height of the event. And we'd got all these rides, all these cool attractions, and hardly anybody came. And I went home that night and cried my head off because I felt like a complete failure. I'd put in all this effort. We hadn't lost money. We'd covered our costs. But really, there should be loads of kids sliding down that slide. There should be people all over these attractions, enjoying it. That's what it had been like the year before. But I was too overconfident that thinking marketing was easy. And so many entrepreneurs skip that step. They think, oh, if I post something on Instagram or I put something on my Snapchat, everyone's going to know about it and instantly give me money. And that's just not the case. You need to work really hard to build up the audience and to make sure people are aware of what your product or your service is. So I knew by the time I got to my third year doing this, I needed to do something a little bit different, because we had made way less money and I was way less proud of what I'd achieved. So the next year, I really focused on the marketing. I went to other schools and invited them. I did presentations to the primary schools. I went on radio. I did email invites to parent councils. I put up posters. I put up massive banners at the front of the school. I went into classes and told people about the event. I recruited volunteers to help me because I was so confident thinking that I could do all this myself, but I had my reality check standing on that empty field with all of this around me, realizing that I needed help to make sure that I could make as much success and help as many people as possible, because posting on Facebook wasn't enough. Although at the time, Facebook was pretty cool. So I don't think you think Facebook's cool now, but it was definitely cool back then. And I really focused on trying to build something up. And then the next year, it was massive. The fields were full. There were hundreds of people, and we made double the revenue, even more than double the revenue with people. There were people queued up coming to get their tickets to come to the event. And I knew that I'd learned my lesson and been able to market this and to create much bigger impact with what I'd done. So if you're thinking about entrepreneurship, don't underestimate how difficult and challenging marketing can be, because you can see the difference between this photo on the left at the bottom, where there's queues of people to do every attraction, and this one here from the year before where nobody came. So it's about building up those audiences. And that was my lesson that I learned as I was exploring entrepreneurship as a school kid, just the same age as you. But the challenge is you also build businesses to outlive you. And I was going to be leaving school. I knew I needed to kind of do something different. And I knew I wanted to make sure that these projects, while they taught so much personally and, gave me this kickstart of project planning, I also knew I wanted to make sure they were making a difference. And we made sure that the money that we raised, the tens of thousands of pounds, were donated to great projects. So here are some examples of the projects around the world that are funded by these events. So I think this is a well in India that was paid for by the charity project that I'd set up called the Aqua Initiative. There's another one there in Rwanda. We sent life straws to Sudan. We sent projects to Ethiopia. That's the other part about building your business, is you get to see tangible impact. Your goal as an entrepreneur is hopefully to create something real that outlives you and goes on to do something further. And by the time I was finishing school, I took a trip to Ethiopia myself to see the real world impact and actually see firsthand some of the projects that I'd been kind of contributing to. So there's me thinking I'm cool. I don't know why I'm in jeans in the middle of Ethiopia, but we'll just ignore that for now. And this is me in a remote village in Ethiopia looking at projects and seeing, the issue firsthand. And even if you think you're the expert or you've kind of worked in your entrepreneurship space, you always need to get firsthand experience of the problem that you're solving to understand. Because later on, I would figure out that, building the well is one issue, but actually maintaining it and growing it is another. So as I was finishing up at school, I was seeing the impact of the great projects. We'd cracked the great opportunity for this event, and I'd learned a lot of lessons, but this was a 4-year passion project. What was going to happen when I graduated from high school? I was a bit of a solo player for a lot of it, and while I'd got some volunteers, is this all going to die? Was all this hard work going to just end up to nothing? So that was my mission. In my final year, I stepped back deliberately. So even though I was still in the school, I recruited a team of volunteers. I had them plan all the sessions. I had them figure out what they wanted to do with the event, and I was there to support, but I was sort of stepping back. And the event was even more successful than the year before when I'd planned it myself. There was a whole team of people working on it. They were able to build it up to be even better. And the bit of this story that stresses me, but also is the bit that I'm the most proud of, that was in about 2012, that event, that last event that I was involved in when I was in school. And the kids who are running it today, because it is still going on today, 2024 and 2025, they weren't even born when this was happening. The first time we planned this was in 2009. And now there are kids who were born in 2009 making this happen because the event still happens year after year. And that's the power of entrepreneurship, is that while I've not been involved for years, I was proud to have set up something that has grown and got better, and new people have taken it on and new people have learned from it. So 16 years later, new students are still embracing this idea and still building something. So that's another lesson that I learned on my particular experience of going from classroom to boardroom, was you can't do it alone and you need the support of others, and you get the chance to create a lasting legacy. I went on to register the Aqua Initiative as a charity. I did work on it for a few more years. I continued to work with the schools. I kind of worked with some other schools to try and set up similar projects. But by the time I was in university, I was kind of moving on to different projects and different priorities, and have left that as kind of a startup that I was involved in, and is kind of a good part of my life, but it's not what I'm doing today, because we often think entrepreneurship needs to be something we stick to forever, but actually it can just be a key part of your life, a lesson that you learn. But if you can build a legacy like this, then it can live on beyond you. So that was my experience, and being in a classroom much like yours and having a spark of an idea and turning it into something that has outlived me and gone beyond me. Is that something that you could be considering? Is there a role for your journey? Let's have a look at some tips that I've gained, but also some practical things for you to think about as you're working through your own entrepreneurial journey or considering if you wanted to start a business, what you would do. So if I was in your shoes, again, back in high school, thinking about my career options after university, I'd be thinking about step one being to find something you care about. Much like me driving to school that day and figuring out what issue I wanted to solve, that is where you need to start with entrepreneurship. Is there something that you really care about? You have to be passionate about the idea you're going to work on, and it has to be something that you have skills in and that you enjoy, but it's also something that people want. So it can't just be something that is a hobby for you, because if nobody wants it or if nobody's going to pay you money to support a problem or an issue or a product or a service, then it's not a business, it's a hobby. So try and find ways that you can make money from something, but it is something you're willing to dedicate time and effort to. And there's a few different types of entrepreneurship that you can go down. The one I spoke about was social entrepreneurship. So that's not about personal benefit or wealth. It's about kind of creating value to society or charity, but still doing it as a business. The model that I used for the Aqua Initiative projects was that we always got sponsors to cover the operational costs of the events and the projects, and we used every single penny of donations to go straight to the projects. So we built a business model for that small venture that made sure that we were socially enterprising. So everybody who donated, every primary 7 kid who came along with their pocket money to ride on the slides on the World Water Day Carnival, made sure that every penny of that went to projects, and we went to the big water companies and got them to pay for the bouncy castles and the machines. So that's a different model. You don't have to do it that way. So a normal enterprise might be that you try to make profit from it, or you only donate 10% of the raise to charity. We chose to go with the social enterprise model to make sure that everything went to charity and nothing went to us personally. Other options. So a thing you hear a lot now, and maybe you've got other classmates or entrepreneurial wheelers and dealers, is side hustles. This is businesses that, where you're working still or you're studying still, but it's something you do on the side. And actually 2 out of 5 people in the UK in 2025 have a side hustle, some other business or some side job that they do outside of their main work. There's lots of different things you could do. Maybe it's selling products online on Amazon or Etsy. Maybe it's being a virtual assistant where, as you get a bit older, you maybe could be arranging meetings or scheduling things and doing that completely virtually for someone, and you get to choose how many clients you take on. It could be being a dog walker and kind of helping. My dog literally was just out getting walked earlier before this meeting. It could be being a personal tutor or an online tutor. It could be babysitting. It could be affiliate marketing where, you're an online influencer and you promote certain products, and when people click a link to those products, you get a slice of those. It could be selling stock photos if you're really into photography. It could be reselling or upcycling furniture. There's lots of little things you could do in your spare time that could help you be entrepreneurial and generate a little bit of money on top of working full time. So have a think. Is there things that you're particularly passionate about? I don't advise everybody imagines that they're going to be an influencer. I'm sure there's a lot of people who want to be YouTubers and influencers and future Mr. Beasts out there. That might be your path, but equally, it doesn't always have to mean going as big as that. You just need to find a small niche, a small part of a market where people are interested, and think about how you could possibly make money. So that's side hustles. You could also look at lifestyle businesses. So this is not something that you imagine being a major global enterprise. This is about you running a small business for yourself, often quite local. Often you're not having big ambitions of having offices or premises all over the world. It's just what you want to do to work for yourself. So this could be everything from being a freelance digital marketer and making social media content for companies. It could be being a web designer and making websites where you get to choose which clients you want to work with. It could be a videographer, could be being a hairdresser, you could set up a cafe, it could be event planning, it could be working or running your own shop or restaurant, or being a personal trainer, perhaps an interior designer, a leadership coach, a pet groomer, a plumber, an electrician. All of these are completely entrepreneurial careers where you have to find your clients, you have to build your brand, you have to be entrepreneurial, but you get to set your own prices, you get to set when you work and how you work and what you offer. But it is important that you have something that makes you distinctive and that you have some of the talents and skills needed. So that's a lifestyle business, something that you are full-time, it's your main job, but actually it's something relatively easy to kind of achieve and you don't have to go global. And the final kind of business is startups or scale-ups or innovation-driven businesses. And these are the things that will typically have a bigger ambition level. These are things that you imagine could change the world or could have major global customers. So that's everything from designing and building apps to creating software to inventing new medical technologies to inventing new energy technologies. That's the kind of companies that I work with in my day job. It could be in this modern world, building AI agents, tools that use artificial intelligence to make tasks easier that you can sell as a product. Or it could be blockchain, cryptocurrency, all these kind of novel innovations, building exciting businesses around disruptive technologies. They are hard to build. They are complicated. They fail a lot. You need a lot of money. You need to raise investment. And that's where startup accelerators and training programs can help you figure out those things. But the same thing always comes back to step one, whether it's any type of business, any of the ones I've spoken about, is it something that you care about? Is it something you want to spend time on and work on and develop further? So step two, I don't have too many steps. I'm not going to go through every step of building a business, don't worry. But step two, when you're thinking about going from classroom to boardroom, is to find an idea that stands out. You might love to be a pet groomer, but if you Google it and there's 25 of them on your street, you're maybe not going to get as many customers as you need to keep you in business. So you need to make sure that there's some difference in what you do to make you stand out. So let's have a look at an example of a company called Bourbon. I'm assuming most of you haven't heard of this. So this was set up by a guy called Kevin, and he started to learn to code at night after his work or after his school. So probably he was a university student at the time. And his idea was, bourbon type of drink. It's sort of socializing with your friends. And it was a geolocation app in the early 2010s. So there's quite a lot of them at the time. So this thing called Square, and it was all about you saying, instead of connecting with people that you already knew, you might say, I'm at this cafe, who else is around me at this cafe? And you could connect with them and get to know people based on where you were at. But it was quite a competitive space, and apps at the time were really complicated and clunky, and it was kind of hard to figure out, and you probably didn't have very good mobile internet at the time as well. So he started to build this technology and he started to find co-founders, he started building users, but they had an issue. As they were building more and more users, the app just kept crashing and they couldn't figure out why. Was it something to do with the design? Was it something to do with server space? They bought more server space and all of a sudden the app was still crashing and they couldn't figure out what was going on. And while they had loads of features, there was one feature in particular that was causing all the bother, but also was exciting users the most. And it was the ability to post a picture. Ability to say, I'm at this cafe and here's my picture of me at this cafe. Most other platforms maybe didn't really lean into the pictures. And they started to really talk to their customers and understand, well, actually, the pictures piece is the thing that is really exciting. And they went back and in about 8 weeks, they decided to redesign the platform. They decided to rebuild it and they built an iPhone app. And it was really cluttered with lots of features. So again, they went back and they redesigned it and they simplified it and they focused on just one element, pictures. And in 2010, they launched and they decided to rename their business from Bourbon to Instagram. And you've probably heard of Instagram now. You probably maybe didn't know that it used to be a geolocation sharing site with the name called Bourbon. But you probably also know that it was bought by Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook for $1 billion. And at the time, they only had 13 employees and had no idea how the business was actually going to raise money. But because they had leaned into pictures, they built a user base, they'd proven and they'd tweaked the technology, they tweaked the business because people had asked for certain things. They built a much more successful business because they knew what people wanted. So you need an idea that stands out and you need an idea that people are interested. And you're not going to get it right on the first try. I learned from my lessons of trying to build my event and build my charity that I got too confident and I didn't market it and I did it wrong and I had to change things. Even gigantic companies like Instagram, they have to change things. So don't feel that you have to stick with one idea for the whole time. You have to learn that you're going to change it. So a top tip is to have a little journal or a thing on your phone or something like that, where as you walk around in a week, think of all the things that frustrate you, things that you're like, oh, that doesn't work, or why is this not sorted, or I wish there was a solution for this, because you are coming up with business ideas all the time. You just don't know about it. It's the things you moan about to your friends where you're like, I wish the school had this function so that we could know, when our homework was due, or I wish, there was an easy way for us to know how busy McDonald's is before we go there. I don't know. This is my attempt to understand what is interesting, but you feel these frustrations all the time, and you could be the one to come up with the idea to try and solve it. So step number 1 was all about thinking about something you care about. Step number 2 is finding something that other people care about and that is distinctive and unique. So have a think about what you can come up with. And my step number 3 is really about merging all of those together, because there's a lot of operational things when it comes to setting up a business, but how do you know if your idea is any good? Is there a way to kind of prove it? And a really interesting way is these 3 things. Desirability. This is all about, do people want it? So if you're talking to people and people are kind of not that interested in hearing about your idea, maybe it's not very desirable. Like the photo sharing with Instagram, people desired it. People were using it. They tested it. They saw that that was the thing. Maybe the geolocation, knowing where people were, wasn't very desirable. Photos, very desirable. So desirable that it crashes the whole damn app. But is there anything that you know about your idea to make sure that it is desirable? Feasible. This is about, can you actually build it? So yes, it's really desirable that I would have a teleportation device that could take me on holiday right now. But sadly, I don't think that's feasible at the moment. You never know. If any of you could invent it, that would be really great. Please let me know. But feasibility is really important to make sure that it is functional, that you have the capabilities to build a business in the time that you have. If you have £1 million in your pocket in 10 years, then great, try and build a teleportation. But let's start with things that you've got. Have you got a laptop? Have you got a phone? Have you got your parents' garage? Have you got, access to the internet? What can you do with the resources that you've got to build a business that is something that people want? And then viability, the third circle, is about the money side of things, because while it might be really desirable to have, a festival in, Aberdeen, let's put on a gigantic mega music festival and let's get Taylor Swift and, all sorts of celebrities here. I'm sure it's desirable, technically feasible. I could find concert people, I could find staging and things like that. But is it viable? Could we afford to do that? Possibly not. It might be quite challenging to be able to find the financial model to do that. Viability is about how much you spend versus how much you can make. Is there enough customers who are willing to spend enough money to help you with your idea? So whether it's hairdressing or dog grooming, these are the 3 things to think about. Whatever the idea that comes to your head, do people want it? Is there enough people that want it? Can you actually do it? Do you have the skills and the resources to be able to do it? Or do you have the ability to get those skills and resources through college or university or training? And viability. Can you make money from it? And is it enough to actually cover your costs of living? So figure out what it is that makes your idea. So step 3 is about finding out what real customers want and really testing those 3 elements to make sure that it's something interesting. So one of the things that startups and early stage people always like to do is they ask their friends and family. If any of you have done enterprise modules, you've probably had the question, go and find out what customers want. And what do you end up doing? You do a survey or you ask your classmates and you say, my idea is this, do you think it's a good idea? And because they're your mate, they fill in your form and they say yes. And then you fill in and say 100% of the people we asked think this is a brilliant idea. But actually 0% of the people you ask would give you a single penny for it because they couldn't care less about your idea. They're just trying to do it to keep you happy. You have to find out what real customers want and their real opinions and how much they'd be actually willing to spend to buy your business. So yes, you might ask your granny and your auntie, yeah, I'd love to set up a dog walking service. Would you think that's a good idea? Great. But if your granny and your auntie don't have a dog, then they're not actually customers. So it doesn't really matter what they think. What you need to do is you need to go around to the local dog park. You need to ask the people who have dogs and ask them what their experience is like with dog walking and would they ever get a dog walker and what they look for in a dog walker and how much they would charge for a dog walker. And you would instantly have 10 people who could be potential customers. It's scary having to ask people their opinions of stuff. But that's what entrepreneurship is about. It's about helping people. It's about giving them a service, about doing things that they want. So ask real questions because often it's the first step in how you design and build a technology or a product or a business. So this is a thing called design thinking, and it starts with this blue section here. So this empathize. Empathize is all about, do you understand the problems of the other person? So if I'm setting up a dog walking business, I need to empathize with the person who's got a dog and what they actually want. Is it about, well, I'm really stressed about going to work and I need to make sure my dog gets a walk at a certain time of day, or I want there to be group walks so my dog can socialize with lots of other dogs. So by understanding their issues, you learn so much more, and that helps you define, which is the orange section. Okay, we need to do a dog walking business that helps with group walking because that's a gap in the market. People really want their dogs to socialize with other dogs, but that isn't something that's currently offered. You then ideate, so that's all about coming up with lots of ideas. So we could set up a dog daycare building. We could set up a dog walking van where we go take dogs out. We could do it on different streets. We could have dog walking clubs on the weekends where people all come together with their dogs. You know, there's lots of different ways that you could solve that problem. You prototype it. Maybe you run a little trial event. Duffy Park this Saturday. Everybody come with your dogs. We're going to have a dog walking day out. Golden Retriever meetup. Let's all have a go. £5, blah, blah, blah. You test it. Nobody comes. Wrong idea. You do it the next week. You do it for the German Shepherds and you do it at Seaton Park. And all of a sudden, loads of people are coming. Oh, okay. We've figured something out. And you test it. That grey section in the middle, you keep testing, you keep learning from people, you keep coming up with new ideas. And that's the best way to take something that you think is a good idea and learn if people actually want it and to keep making it better. Just because it doesn't work the first time, I stood in that field with nobody there and I learned from it. I learned how to do marketing better. I tried something different and it got better and we raised tens of thousands of pounds because I learned and did something better. If you'd asked me on that day, there was no way I was doing another one of those events. I was done. I'd failed. I was a failure. The business is rubbish. Nobody's interested. But you've got to be resilient. You've got to keep learning. You've got to keep testing. I knew there was a better solution there. I just hadn't found it. And that's what you can do with your business idea as well. So find ways of learning from people. Talk to customers. Talk to customers. What do they have to do with the product we eventually want them to buy? How many entrepreneurs just end up building something and they never even spoke to the customers and they find out after they spent lots of time and effort, nobody actually wants it. So that is your challenge, is to try and find something that people actually want. So do a little mock website, set up a Google form where you ask people to kind of pretend buy your products or services, get a waiting list to see if people would sign up before you even try launching it. Do a survey or a poll on your Instagram story or on your Snapchat to find out if anyone is interested. Do a crowdfunding campaign if you're a little bit older and you have an ability to kind of make money. Try all sorts of different ways to find out what people want and to try and really test the idea that you've got. And my final thing is to get some support. There is loads of lovely support out there. I'm sure you've got career advisors in your school who maybe have some ideas. There's the young enterprise team, I imagine, that you maybe have spoken to in your school. There's organizations once you get a little bit older, whether it's university or colleges, that support entrepreneurs. I run a startup program in Aberdeen that offers £50,000 to energy entrepreneurs. If you come up with a new energy innovation, a new type of wind turbine or a system that can make hydrogen or something that can capture carbon dioxide from the air, we provide funding and training and support. So there's loads of programs just like this out there to help you. You don't need to be a business expert, but you do need to have an idea that you care about, an idea that people want, an idea that can make some money, and an idea that you've tested with real people to know that there's a real market opportunity for it. So it takes a lot to go from classroom to boardroom, and it's not one easy step, but with all of these little tips and tricks, it's a great opportunity for you to explore entrepreneurship, see what ideas come up, and hopefully take the next steps in your career. So thank you so much for listening to me. If you want to know more about me, you can add me on LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn yet, I imagine that's way too uncool for people. But my name's Edward Pollock. If you have any questions, then please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you so much for listening.
Well, Edward, that's absolutely amazing. I can't believe that before you even finished school, you had an international charity enterprise running between Ethiopia, Dubai, and Aberdeen. So that, if that's not inspiring for young people, then I don't know what is. So some amazing work that you could do there, and I can just see all these young entrepreneurs thinking about their Dragon's Den moment there, and certainly I learned something. So yeah, I think that there's something that we can do for all of us. So for those of you that are watching, if you've been inspired by Edward today, then go online to TechFest website and have a look at our Pioneers of Progress activity, which can be run in the school, which is a little bit of more of an introduction. And Edward has a starring appearance in that also. And that's just a little bit of entrepreneurship that you can do within the classroom. For those of you in S4 to S6, watch this space, because we will shortly be launching our Innovation in Action competition, and a lot of what Edward has talked about today will be really useful for those of you that are participating in that. So hopefully we'll see more of you joining us for that. But Edward, thank you so much. We know what a busy guy you are, but that was truly inspiring. You've got my head spinning. I don't know who Mr. Beast is, but I'm sure the young people do, and I'll go and look that up. So I'm probably not cool enough for that. But yeah, no, thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you. See you soon.